And so I think that you're going to see first more subtle impacts on corrupt governments. And then as the economic benefits of moving to a cryptocurrency become apparent, I think you'll start to see other governments begin to shift into cryptocurrencies, or at least their citizens.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri, and I'm joined today with the Director of Finance of Dash, Ryan Taylor. And if you recall, I spoke with Amanda B. Johnson not too long ago, getting to know Dash and introducing Dash, the digital currency, to the Crush audience. And since then, and even up till then, Dash has been on fire. So I wanted to get Ryan Taylor on the line today. He, like I said, is the Director of Finance, and he's involved with Dash now. Ryan, thanks for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Ryan, can you give us an idea here of why Dash is seeing this tremendous amount of momentum move into it, and just introduce that to our audience for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So just to give some context around what kind of momentum we're talking about, as recently as the fourth quarter of 2015, daily trading volume was somewhere around $63,000 a day or something. It averaged that quarter. Fourth quarter of 2016, a year later, we had grown that volume by over 1,700% to over $1 million a day. And if you look at the numbers this month, March is averaging over $35 million a day in trading volume. So these are not just exponential numbers, but these are extraordinary growth numbers. And in parallel with that, of course, our market cap has grown triple digits every single year. We're already up triple digits, approaching quadruple digits this year. And so it is just an incredible growth rate. And it's really happened most dramatically over the course of the last 3 months.
Wow. And
I think that the reasons for it are probably many. I certainly have some of my top candidates in mind as to the reasons. And I think they're the following. I think, number one, our message is finally starting to get out, and especially when we're at the number 3 spot, it's forcing a lot of people to take a look at the coin. Maybe they'd heard something about it and don't really understand what makes Dash different, but it's forcing a lot of people to invest the time to learn about Dash and learn what makes it different. And it's attracting a lot of new people into our ecosystem. I think the second thing is that the market is beginning to appreciate the model and appreciate the self-funded model, the governance issues that we've solved, and quite frankly, the transactional issues that we've solved around instant transactions and so on. And they're seeing a history of us not just seeing issues and dealing with them, but anticipating those issues and dealing with them proactively, long before this has become issues for other coins.
Ryan, okay.
Yeah, and then I think the third major reason that I would attribute it to is, quite frankly, the extraordinary amount of business development activities that we've seen over the course of the last 3 months. And in particular, I think that there's an appreciation for the agreement that we recently funded, the integration with BlockCipher, which really opens up Dash uniquely among all the altcoins to direct integration with a bunch of end user services. And we've got a very full pipeline of end user services that you're no longer going to have to go through Shapeshift in order to use your Dash. on all of these services. And so I think we're seeing a dramatic shift in Dash's entry into real usability and so on. And I think people are anticipating that to continue.
And what would you attribute Dash's popularity to? I mean, would you attribute any of it to the fact that many people are concerned about the direction Bitcoin is going, and if it's going to split, and if Bitcoin's going to run into such a problem that is so great that people need to look elsewhere in terms of alternative digital currencies?
Well, I have seen the sentiment expressed that Dash is a really good hedge right now against what's happening with Bitcoin. And I can't necessarily disagree with that. I think that if Bitcoin were to split, it would be harmful on a number of fronts, not just to Bitcoin, but to cryptocurrencies in general, and the reputation that they have and so on. It would be another kind of major issue on the magnitude of, Ethereum splitting and Mt. Gox and Silk Road associations. It would just add to that list.
Really, I'll just jump in right there. Really, though, it'll just set it back, because it won't necessarily take away the importance or the need for digital currencies. It'll just scare a lot of people who are on the fence, who are now probably never going to get involved with it. But those that understand it, those that understand the problems and accept the problems and accept that they're going to be improved on, it's just part of the growth of the alternative forms of money that we have now.
Yes, I would view it as a setback, not a doomsday scenario, certainly. I think that these issues will be solved. Whether they can be solved by Bitcoin or not remains to be seen, but they will be solved. And I believe that digital currency definitely has a role. It has unique attributes that no other currency or form of payment shares. And so I think that it definitely has a place. And so, these issues will be worked through.
Ryan, on a technical level, not too technical, but just some of the specifics on what makes Dash unique and maybe what makes it better than Bitcoin. If you would share that with everyone, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think that there's a few main differentiators, although there's many, and we could spend hours talking about the technical underlyings of the coin, but I think there's a few things that make Dash unique, both from a product perspective, an organization perspective, a community perspective, and I'll try and touch on all of those. But from a technical perspective, one of the big differentiators and one of the features that gets used most often is our instant send feature. It basically allows for instant confirmation of a transaction. And that has a lot of value, not just because it opens up new potential use cases, like being able to place a bet on a game at halftime. Something that's time sensitive like that. Being able to use it at a point of sale type scenario. But also just usability. People don't want to wait around an hour for their transaction to go through, or even longer if the blocks are full. They want to just be able to send their money and use it on an exchange, or use it on a site that they're shopping at, or what have you. And so people's time is very valuable, and they're willing to pay a fee in order to enjoy that type of service. It is a premium option on our network, but something like 30% of transactions use it. So people love it. They use it frequently, and it provides a really great user experience. The second is that we have enhanced privacy. In fact, I think that's probably what we're most known for, even though it's not our most popular feature. So you can obfuscate your balances and keep those private. You can keep transactions private, and so it's really an enhanced level of security akin to using cash. And that's really what we aim to be, as a digital form of cash. And I think beyond those features, we're very focused on usability in general. And our next release, Evolution, is going to take cryptocurrencies to a whole new place in terms of the user experience. And whether that's just shifting the fees from the consumer to the merchant, to doing away with the long cryptographic addresses, to just being able to log in from different devices and see the same information without relying on a centralized service in order to do that. All of these things are going to be possible with Evolution. And so we think it expands out the market for cryptocurrency to a whole new audience, probably an exponentially larger audience. And so all of those things are kind of the technical, the product itself. But the other things that make Dash unique are, first of all, organizationally, we're very aligned. We have a explicit and structured governance system. So we don't have to debate on Reddit and try to decipher from Reddit posts what the network wants. We simply hold a vote. And on strategic issues, on funding issues, we reach consensus very quickly on what the direction to go is. And we have a leadership in team that has the endorsement of the network. And by having a leadership team, we can set up priorities, strategy, and direction, instead of having multiple groups all pulling in different directions with different priorities, different use cases that they want to go address. One of the issues, I think, with traditional cryptocurrencies or first generation cryptocurrencies is different people have different ideas, and one cryptocurrency cannot be all things to all people. You can't both have small blocks and large blocks. And so we've really introduced a new way of doing things that allows all oars to row in the same direction. And we're able to move much more nimbly towards a single strategy as opposed to being divided.
Real quick, Ryan, so I'm sorry, let me jump in right there. What did you mean by small blocks, large blocks? Why would you need one or the other for someone like me who doesn't understand all the technicals super well?
Yeah, so the debate that has been raging with Bitcoin for about 2.5 years now is whether or not to increase the block size. And the block size is important because the block size essentially determines how many transactions can be included in a given time period. So every 10 minutes, a new block is created on Bitcoin's network, and it can contain somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 transactions in it. Now, that's pretty small on the grand scheme of things when you compare it to networks like Visa and MasterCard. And it really limits the number of people that can use the Bitcoin network at one time. And there's a lot of debate around whether or not that limit should be increased. And there are, I think, good reasons on both sides to their arguments. They're not irrational arguments, but the Bitcoin network has no explicit means to resolve this or any other contentious issues. And so they remain stuck in a position in which neither side is willing to compromise, and it stagnates the direction of the coin. Yeah. So if they would just have a means to select an option and pursue it, it would be better. Either of those options, I would argue, would be better than the situation they find themselves in right now, which is an inability to even resolve it.
Okay, Ryan. So I'm familiar with that. But what about, why would someone want a smaller block size? Isn't it isn't the no-brainer response to say, hey, we should increase the block size to include as many transactions as possible?
Well, there are technical barriers that you do come up against in terms of additional computing resources required, both in terms of storage and in terms of computing power in order to process those blocks in a timely manner, in order to store and retrieve information from the blockchain. And in a blockchain like Bitcoin's, where nodes are not incentivized, in introducing new costs to hosting a node might have the effect of reducing the number of nodes on your network, which weakens your network. And so it's not a no-brainer in the sense that let's just increase it to infinity, because that may not be feasible. There may be consequences to that. And so, I think everyone is well-intentioned in trying to solve this issue. But in a network like Bitcoin's, where there is no incentive to host a node other than altruism and supporting the network for the good of the network, it isn't a no-brainer. And I understand the arguments.
Sure.
But it would be better if they would pick a direction and be able to move in it. I just don't think they have a mechanism in order to resolve it. And Reddit debates are not going to resolve it. And digging heels in is not going to resolve it. So, bringing it back to Dash, we recognize that these types of issues were going to be important and that governance was important. So before we even focused on the usability of our coin and the user experience and creating evolution, we set a strong foundation in place so that we would be able to resolve any issues, technical or otherwise, that would come up on our network, so that we have a healthy means to grow. And that took a lot of time. That was a year of development effort, and it's paying dividends at this point. I think people recognize the issues that are happening elsewhere and recognize that we have something that is, so far, extremely effective at dealing with these types of things.
Ryan, is there a problem then, and I think we're discussing it now, that Bitcoin does not have a known founder, someone that people can look towards? And is that a benefit of Dash, that you guys are there, you're working on it, and there's a governance for the currency?
That's an interesting question. I have given this some thought, and I'm sure that if Satoshi were around and were weighing in on this issue, it would have tremendous impact on the outcome. The founder, rightly or wrongly, usually has tremendous sway over the direction that things head, even through endorsement. And so I think that endorsement is a very powerful tool. I think that it should be used sparingly, and Evan has done a really good job of using his endorsement very sparingly and on the most strategic issues, setting the overall direction and taking the time to really understand the topic and listen to input and set a direction. And so I think that his leadership there is very important for us. I think it's a valuable asset to have. That said, Satoshi's absence is, should not be a barrier to being able to move forward. I think that there are ways to, for leadership to come forward that isn't the founder and add value and get people to move in the same direction. I just don't know who that is within the Bitcoin ecosystem. So, I think that endorsement is certainly an advantage that we have, and I hope that Evan continues to use it in a very effective way.
Ryan, and maybe this is a stupid question for technical experts or digital currency experts, but is it possible then for Dash to have a hard fork here with a government and the way you guys vote on things and the currency is managed?
I think it's, of course, technically feasible. It would take, I think, political will in order to see that happen. I think you're more likely to see blockchain used in a corporate setting first on a much smaller scale. I think you'll start to see companies gather their initial funding through the issuance of tokens and have essentially those tokens represent shares and experimenting with different means of those shareholders having input into the company. I think you're seeing it already with Dash. Our masternode owners I think of as our shareholders, and we have a fiduciary duty to them to act in the best interest of the coin. And if we're not doing a good job, our funding can be removed. But I think there are probably other mechanisms besides just, the funding. Having funding removed is kind of the nuclear option, right? I think that we need to find ways to have more direct accountability to the network. I think we're doing a good job, but longer term, I think that you'll see more experimentation happen in terms of what's effective, because I think that blockchain opens up a new possibility. With public companies, they vote over, once a year, once every 2 years, they vote in a board, and that's it, and they might get to vote on whether an acquisition happens or something. But shareholders get very limited input on a very infrequent basis, and blockchain opens up the possibility to get their input almost real time. And so I think you'll see more effective governance mechanisms taking place on blockchain than traditional financial structure. And so I think you'll see the adoption there first. And once the technology is more proven out and that governance can be more effective on a blockchain for companies, governments will start to explore this. And so it'll be interesting to see the evolution of all of these things happen. But I think, certainly some governments won't want more accountability, but some will. And some will recognize the value. And so I think there's tremendous value here for humanity beyond cryptocurrency.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around what the world is going to look like now that we have just the onset of basically unlimited amounts of digital currencies coming online or with the ability to come online. And I'm just so intrigued to imagine what the world is going to look like in 50 years. And with, traditional fiat currencies and digital currencies and the dynamics between the two, the ability to get in and out, to convert from one to another. And have you put any thought into this? What the world would look like in terms of how we transact 50 years, 100 years down the line, and what it could eventually turn into?
Well, I think when you start to see the first usable versions of cryptocurrency, I would argue cryptocurrency is not usable yet. It's still in the techno-geek realm, and it's still way too difficult for the average person to use. It's one of the reasons why we're so focused on it, because the benefits aren't going to accrue to society until you make it easy enough for average consumers to use. I think the most immediate impact that this will have is, first of all, it puts a floor on how incompetent a government or central bank can become with its own currency, because it gives consumers and citizens those countries the opportunity to switch if their own option is terrible. And so I think it puts a higher level of accountability on those governments. And believe me, if people switch away from a version of the currency that the government can print unlimited amounts of and directly pocket and dilute everyone else, when a government does that, it's corrupt. And by taking away that option, you're taking away one of their sources of funding, and it weakens corrupt governments. And so I think that you're going to see first more subtle impacts on corrupt governments. And then as the economic benefits of moving to a cryptocurrency become apparent, I think you'll start to see other governments begin to shift into cryptocurrencies, or at least their citizens.
Wow.
And so I think that it will happen in the places where the environment is the worst first, and those are the type of people that will benefit the most. Whether countries like the United States, where quite frankly, I know people bash on it quite a lot, but quite frankly, our currency is pretty stable. It is not a high risk situation for us that use it. We don't have to get paid every day so that we can convert our currency to something else and stuff it under our mattress, or go buy gold, because our currency isn't going to be worth as much tomorrow. If I walk into Walmart tomorrow, the prices are going to be pretty much the same as they were today. So, I don't know whether it will get as much of an impact in stable economies like ours, but I think certainly you'll see an impact very quickly in other places. But payments behavior, economics behavior, these change generationally. So in places where the options that exist are not horrible, it will take a very long period of time for these things to happen. But cryptocurrencies are superior, economically. They're more efficient. And so I think over time, they will take a larger and larger share of the market.
Ryan Taylor. Ryan, I want to thank you for your time and coming on the show with me today. If people want to learn more about Dash and put some Dash in their digital wallets, where would they go, and what would they find, and where could they find out more information on it?
Well, there's a couple places to go to find out about where to get it, and those would be dash.org, where they can visit our website. We've got a list of exchanges and ways to buy Dash on that website. They can also go to coinmarketcap.com and see a comprehensive list, if they click on Dash, of all of the exchanges that are operating. And for more information, dash.org is a great place to start. There's links to our forum. There's links to community information, everything from, there's a Telegram group, to links to our Reddit, links to a variety of different resources that they can go to and learn more. So it's a growing ecosystem. We've got a bunch of different avenues that you can get involved and learn about it. And dash.org is a great place to kind of find links to all of those.
All right, Ryan. Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the line with me. Thanks so much.
I very much appreciate it. Thank you.